Well, over the next 10 years, the U.S. economy will create roughly 20 million new jobs. But here's the catch. Of those new jobs, 6 out of 10 will require a college degree or occupational certification. And not just any old sheepskin. These are jobs that will require serious technology skills. And as we emerge from the Great Recession, what we are seeing across several industries is not just the lack of jobs, but the skilled workers to fill them. And nowhere is it more evident than in America's reinvigorated manufacturing and maintenance industries. And that is where our Courtney Dehoff starts us off.
Well, the need for highly skilled workers continues to grow as Oklahoma's manufacturing and maintenance sectors thrive. What was once thought of as dirty, hot, hard work is now increasingly being seen as a pathway to a successful career. For over half a century, American manufacturing has dominated the globe. And despite the recent recession, it is not about to slow down anytime soon, at least in Oklahoma.
Manufacturing is responsible for over 10% of our gross state product. 130,000 to 150,000 direct employees. Then you put off of that.
Mike Sini with the State Chamber of Oklahoma believes manufacturing is the true builder behind Oklahoma's economy.
Manufacturing job, for every 100 manufacturing jobs, there are 250 other jobs created in the state because of those manufacturing jobs. They could be the donut shop down at the corner next to the plant. That donut shop, or that manufacturer goes away, those jobs go away. The same thing in the retail, it's the home buyers, it's the home construction, because manufacturing jobs pay 17% more than the average job in Oklahoma.
And far from average, manufacturing jobs are at an all-time high, but there may be a missing piece to the puzzle.
Manufacturing is the core of what we're doing right now. That's also where we have a lot of jobs opportunities. Manufacturing in the country is going to need 600,000 new workers over the next 10 years. 600,000. The problem is their current workforce, the average age is over 55. They're going to retire. And when they retire, we've got to have people coming in, and they don't necessarily all have to have college degrees. A skilled worker, a machinist, a tool and die man can write their own ticket right now. They can make almost $80,000 in this state right now.
And manufacturing is not alone in its need for workers. The aviation industry's maintenance technicians are in high demand. Pete Lee is the aviation maintenance school director in Oklahoma City.
What we do is we train aircraft mechanics, individuals to meet the FAA requirements to become an FAA mechanic. And over the years, we've been really successful at it. We've put more than 1,200 people to work out in the industry area. Our students, last year, their salaries, combined salaries, earned $50 million, contributing back into the Oklahoma economy.
The demand for mechanics is obvious, and graduates of the aviation maintenance program are no exception.
96% of our students, 91% of our students go to work in the aviation field itself, using the skills that they learned here. Another 5 or 6% are still looking for jobs in the aviation field, and they're working at other places that are not aviation related. We call that a positive placement. So when we look at the related placement of working in the aviation field plus the other jobs that they may have, some of them may go back to school, some may go into the military. That still is considered a positive placement, so that adds up to about 96%.
But no matter where you get your education, it is simply education that matters when trying to land a high-powered, high-paying manufacturing job.
There's no such thing as a bad degree because it gives you an educated workforce. But I think parents and families and kids need to think about what they want to do with their lives and their careers. What can I do with this degree? Where do I expect to go with this degree? Do I really like to get my hands dirty and get involved in agriculture, for example? There's a tremendous market in manufacturing of agricultural goods and services nowadays, too. Where do you really want to go?
And wherever it is you want to go, whether it's manufacturing or maintenance, you're heading towards a career that is really taking off. Now, manufacturing and aircraft jobs do take a certain amount of training. The Aviation Maintenance School in Oklahoma City requires 18 months of over 1,000 rigorous hours of training. But Director Pete Lee assures with that 96% placement rate, it's all worth it.
Well, a recent Harvard University study shows that as much as a third of the increase in unemployment in the past few years can be traced back to a mismatch of skills to job openings. As we've seen today, certain industries have jobs, but not the well-trained workforce to fill them, which is why an effort is underway in schools across our country to closer match education with jobs. I had the opportunity to sit down with the director of Harvard Business School's Pathways to Prosperity Project, Bill Symonds. Mr. Symonds, I think it's probably a widely held conventional wisdom that we need more college graduates in this country. In fact, President Obama has mentioned that. Our governor has her own initiative to do that. Yet you say in your report, Pathways to Prosperity, that may not be the right focus. Why is that?
Well, I think we have to define what we mean by college. So a lot of Americans think in order to succeed in 2012, you need to go to a four-year college, whether that's Oklahoma State, University of Oklahoma, or some other school. What we're saying is for most jobs, you actually don't need a four-year college degree. At the same time, many kids are going to a four-year college because they think they need that degree, and they're dropping out before they get the degree. So they end up with a lot of debt. Student debt this year is going to equal or exceed $1 trillion. Students now have more debt than Americans have money on their credit card, which is pretty incredible if you know anything about the amount of money that the average person puts on their credit card. So they're acquiring a lot of debt. Many of them are not getting the degree. And many of those degrees are not necessary for the good jobs that we have in the economy.
And we also have a fairly high unemployment in the 20-somethings. Is that possibly a symptom of whether they're not getting the degree or maybe they're getting the wrong degree?
I think it is a symptom of the growing disconnect between education on the one hand and the workforce on the other. What do you need to succeed in the workforce of today?
So how does our nation get on this pathway to prosperity?
We think it requires taking a more realistic approach to education. We think we've gone way too far down the road of academic elitism. It sounds funny from a guy who's from Harvard, but we think there's been too much emphasis on strictly academic success, not enough emphasis on the real-world practical skills you need. So one good illustration of that is career counseling. Talking to students about what they want to do when they grow up in a very realistic sense. Students know that we have doctors and lawyers, obviously. Many of them know about CSI because of there's so many programs now about CSIs. They don't know about a lot of the jobs in our economy, though, and so they're not aware of all the options. So career counseling is a good starting point. That's not a radical proposal, that's really common sense. But what's amazing is that many of our high school students get almost nothing in the way of real career counseling.
How early should this counseling start?
Well, you can start talking to students about what they want to do at a fairly young age. I think by the time they get to middle school, that would be a great time to start talking more seriously about what their options are and connect that also to how much money you can make in the different fields, what kind of skills you need to succeed in those fields, what are you going to be doing all day, is that really something that you're interested in? And we think that going from there, it's good to ask students to start developing a life plan. What are they aiming to do? What kind of courses do they need to get there to do that? Now, you can change your mind. We're not talking about tracking students into anything. These are decisions that they would make along with their parents, but they're starting to think about it. That's the key point.
So let's talk a little bit more about tracking. I know some people are concerned that it would be more like a European system where people after maybe grade 9 or 10 are tracked into a system, not just by interest, but by test scores.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is that what we're talking about?
No, it's not what we're talking about. I want to make one really important point, though. Right now, we have tracking in the U.S. It's called the high school dropout problem. Every year, 1 million kids drop out of high school. And I think we can all agree that if you drop out of high school, your prospects for success are almost zero. As a matter of fact, if you want to see what I'm talking about, just watch the auditions every year for American Idol. You see tens of thousands of young people show up. Many of them are high school dropouts, and many of them say this is really their only last shot. If they can somehow become the American Idol, that's going to solve all the problems they've got. But of course, only one person is going to win the contest. For most of them, it's totally unrealistic. So those kids are being tracked into lives of frustration and failure. Now, what we're saying is we're not advocating that a teacher, a principal, or an administrator should tell any child what they're going to do and say that you're going into this program because I think it's good for you. What we're saying is let's give kids the option, and then they can decide what direction they want to go in.
What about those people that would argue that the experience of going to the university, of being in college, is just as important as the education that you would receive?
Well, I think there's lots of different experiences you can have in life. For many students, it turns out to be fairly difficult. They're acquiring a lot of debt, et cetera, and they're, in many cases, not doing well in the class if they don't know why they're there. I'm not saying that a four-year college is bad for everyone. Obviously, it's a great option for some students, but we've oversold it as the only answer, the only pathway. What we're suggesting is there should be multiple pathways to success. For some students, a four-year college is really the best option, but for other students, they'd be a lot better off going to a place like Metro Tech.
And speaking of Metro Tech, we're sitting here inside this airplane hangar where there is a lot of skills-based learning. Is
Right.
that what you're talking about, what we should focus on?
Right. Many of the best jobs in the U.S. Are what we call middle skills jobs. They require very advanced technical skills. They do not require a four-year college degree. The graduates coming out of Metro Tech here are spending about 18 months on average to get their certificate. When they're coming out, they're getting jobs, many of them starting at about $50,000 a year. With overtime, many of them are making a lot more than that. Now, here in Oklahoma, the average wage is only $28,000 a year. So you can see that just by spending 18 months at Metro Tech, you're already coming out making perhaps twice as much as what the average worker does in Oklahoma. I'd say that's a pretty good return on the investment. And by the way, you can get all of this education for less than $9,000. Compare that to the tuition at a four-year college, and you'll see this is a really great deal.
Yeah, and higher ed inflation, I know since the time that I graduated, it's gone up by 276%. And while I'm no spring chicken, that's a lot of money. Like you said, people are actually coming out of school and they have a loan that's equal to like buying a house.
That's right.
Is that sustainable?
I think it's going to be totally unsustainable. At our leading private schools now, the cost of per year is over $50,000. You're talking about over $200,000 for a four-year education. It's becoming more and more unaffordable, and it's going up at the rate of 5% a year. So if we keep on this track, pretty soon it'll be $100,000 a year. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think it's realistic. We need to find better solutions. And this is a terrific solution right here.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon, how skills training in Oklahoma stacks up to that of the nation. But first, connecting corporations with education.
Well, currently in the U.S., less than one of every three college students will earn their college degree. And the statistics are even more discouraging at community colleges. Only 1 out of 4 there will actually complete their education. Now, some of that underachievement is certainly money related, but some of it is due to the fact that here in the U.S., unlike other developed countries, there is little connection between education and the corporations that do the hiring, which is where I pick up my conversation with the director of Harvard Business School's Pathways to Prosperity. Now, we've talked a lot about education in the classroom. What does the role that industry can play in this?
Well, we think industry has to play a vital role, and industry can do several things. First of all, I mentioned the importance of career counseling. So industry knows what jobs they need. They can come in and talk to students about what jobs are available, what kind of skills you need for those jobs, what kind of compensation you can expect if you get those jobs. Secondly, they can help design real-world programs of study. Programs that are going to prepare you to succeed in the workplace from day one. And thirdly, industry can offer opportunities for apprenticeships or actual work-based learning, so you can learn what it's like to have this job. Here at Metro Tech, in this aviation program, many of the students are become apprentices, and they're working in this industry, finding out what it's like to tear down a jet engine or work on an airframe.
Now, I know this approach may be somewhat new to our generation, but when you mention apprenticeship, I kind of think back of the same type of education system we had in the 19th century, where people would apprenticeship under someone for a couple of years at a time.
Right. Well, here in Oklahoma, of course, Oklahoma was not settled by people so much living in cities as it was people, taking advantage of the land grant. And so they would get land, build a ranch, and go from there. I can guarantee you that there weren't any ranchers in Oklahoma, at least not any successful ranchers, that told their kids that, we're going to wait until you're 18 or 20 years old before you do anything around here. They were putting those kids to work, if they were lenient, maybe by the time they were 5 or 6. So they were getting lots of experience on the farm, on the ranch, really learning on the job from a very early age. And by the way, the education system was set up to complement that. That's why we have the agrarian calendar. You go to school during the wintertime, and the summer you've got off because you were needed on the farm. So that was a combination of work and learning. But unfortunately, as we've moved into the 21st century, we've often lost that connection. So it's all academic, and on the learning side, they're not getting any real-world experience.
Now, you've talked about in your report a social contract with today's young people. Explain that to me.
Okay, well, I want to make clear that since we're here in Oklahoma, I'm not talking about socialism in any manner, shape, or form. What I'm talking about is let's bring together the key stakeholders in a area like Oklahoma City, the business leaders, educators, policy leaders, government leaders, and say, what do we need to do to prepare our young people to succeed? And certainly a key part of that success is, can they find a job? Are they going to be able to support a family if they get a job? And then figure out what kind of programs do we need to offer so they can fit into those roles.
What about those people that fear that technical programs can be a dumping ground for maybe people that come from low-income families or maybe are just low performers in the traditional classroom?
Well, let's break that down and examine that. First of all, if you come from a low-income family, okay, so you're making, usually you're living on less than $25,000 a year. As I said, right here in this program, the aviation program at Metro Tech, students are coming out starting at $50,000 a year. So right away, you're not in the low-income group anymore. You've already gone into the middle class. That's actually slightly better than the median family income in the entire country. So, it's certainly not a dead-end job in terms of income. As a matter of fact, it's a ladder up to success. And if you master this program and earn this degree, you can certainly go on and get further education as well.
Now, your report has certainly been greeted with a lot of enthusiasm. What happens from here? How does it get implemented versus just being a great academic study?
Okay, well, yeah, we're hoping that it is going to lead to real-world change. We're actually already seeing that happen in some states. In the state of Washington, for example, they're considering legislation right now that would mandate a lot more focus on career counseling and offering students multiple pathways. I was just in Illinois, which has unveiled a new program called the Illinois Pathways Initiative, which aims to really improve career education in high schools in Illinois. And they're going to get the business community directly involved in that. So we're hoping to start a national movement to give our schools a more real-world focus, help students think about what they want to do with their life, and give them the options to get there and learn those skills. And if we think if we can do that, we're going to have a much more successful outcome than we do right now. Right now, we're failing so many of our students. As I said, we're losing 1 million a year who drop out of high school, and we have the highest college dropout rates in the world here in the U.S. We're sending a lot of kids to college. Many of them drop out before they get a degree.
And just to be blunt, this is not only important for these young people, it's really important for our entire society in this knowledge-based economy.
It's vitally important. People who talk about how are we going to get the economy growing again, how are we going to create employment, this is really, I think, a key part of the answer. And let's put it in historical perspective. During the 20th century, we were really a world leader in education. So if you look at what the average family made in 1900 and then go to 1999, a century later, the average family was 5 to 6 times richer, adjusted for inflation, as they were in 1900. So their wealth increased 5 to 6-fold. That's the average family, not just those people at the top. During the first decade of the 21st century, we actually saw the average family income drop in the U.S. So we're moving in reverse. And we think that this type of approach to education is going to help us reverse that by giving students the skills they need to succeed in today's economy.